Charge! To the household!
Imagine 400 battle-tested killers riding toward your front door at full gallop. Leading them is a ruthless young commander, a future king whose mind has just gone completely dark with rage. He has sworn a blood oath that before the sun rises tomorrow, not a single male in your house will be left breathing. Your husband? He's upstairs, dead drunk, completely clueless, and the very reason these swords are coming for your family. You have no weapons. You have no army. You have less than 1 hour before your home becomes a butcher shop. What do? Do you run? Do you hide? Or do you ride out into the dark canyon and stand directly in front of 400 charging blades? This isn't a movie script. This was the terrifying reality for a woman named Abigail. While her husband drank from golden goblets, unaware that his arrogant tongue had just signed his own execution, Abigail did something insane. She stepped into the gap between life and total destruction, armed with nothing but quick thinking, radical humility, and divine discernment. And what happened next didn't just save an entire household from being wiped off the map. It changed the course of Israel's history forever.
Before we continue, don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you never miss our next Bible story.
To truly understand the danger Abigail faced, you have to look at the world around her. The year was chaotic. Samuel, the great prophet of Israel, had just died. The entire nation was in deep mourning. The spiritual pillar of the country was gone, leaving a dangerous vacuum of uncertainty. King Saul was sinking deeper and deeper into madness, hunting down God's anointed servant, David, like a wild animal in the mountains. David, the young hero who had once slain Goliath, was now a fugitive. He wasn't living in a palace. He was living in caves, moving through the harsh, sun-scorched wilderness of Paran, and he wasn't alone. Surrounding him was a band of roughly 600 men, outlaws, debt-ridden fugitives, and fierce warriors who depended on David for survival. In the fertile town of Maon, extending down into the lush region of Carmel, lived a man named Nabal. Nabal was a descendant of Caleb, but he inherited none of Caleb's noble faith. The Bible doesn't mince words about him. He was harsh, ill-mannered, and downright cruel in his dealings. But he was also unimaginably wealthy. He owned 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats. In ancient times, that didn't just mean you were rich, it meant you were an economic powerhouse. Yet, despite all his riches, Nabal had one massive flaw. His heart was as hard as the desert stone. And then there was his wife, Abigail. The scripture highlights a stark, dramatic contrast between the two. Abigail was not only stunningly beautiful, but she possessed an extraordinary mind, intelligent, perceptive, and deeply devoted to the God of Israel. How a woman of such grace and divine wisdom ended up married to a man as foolish and hot-tempered as Nabal is a mystery of the ancient world. Perhaps it was an arranged marriage for family wealth or political alliance, but one thing was clear. Abigail was living in a golden cage, tethered to a man who degraded everyone around him. Little did Abigail know, her domestic patience was about to be tested by a national crisis. It was sheep shearing season in Carmel. Now, in ancient Israel, sheep shearing season wasn't just farm work, it was the equivalent of harvest time. It was a period of immense joy, lavish feasting, open hospitality, and massive financial gains. Wealthy landowners would throw huge banquets, opening their doors to guests, workers, and travelers. For months, David and his 600 men had been hiding in the very pastures where Nabal's shepherds kept their flocks. Now, let's be honest, 600 desperate, hungry outlaws living in the wild could have easily stolen Nabal's sheep. They could have demanded protection money like desert bandits. But David's men didn't touch a single lamb. In fact, they acted as a human fortress, protecting Nabal's shepherds and livestock from desert raiders and wild animals day and night. When David heard that Nabal was shearing his sheep, he realized this was the perfect opportunity to ask for a small favor. He wasn't demanding a tax, he was simply asking for hospitality after months of providing free protection. David chose 10 of his young men and sent them to Carmel with a respectful message. "Go to Nabal," David instructed them. "Greet him in my name and say, 'Long life to you, peace to you, peace to your household, and peace to all that is yours. We protected your shepherds. Ask them, and they will tell you. Please give my young men whatever you can spare.'" It was a polite, humble, and honorable request. The 10 young men traveled up the rocky hills, delivered David's message, and stood waiting in Nabal's grand hall. Nabal didn't just refuse them, he tore into them with sheer venom. Looking at these battle-tested young men, Nabal spat out insult after insult. "Who is David?" Nabal sneered, tossing his head back in arrogant laughter. "Who is this son of Jesse? These days many servants run away from their masters. Why should I take my bread, my water, and my meat that I've slaughtered for my shearers and give it to men coming from who knows where?" It was a direct, humiliating slap in the face. Nabal was effectively calling David a low-life runaway slave, an outlaw with no honor and no backing. He spat on David's protection and kicked his messengers out into the dust empty-handed. When the 10 young men returned to the wilderness and reported Nabal's words, a terrifying shift took place in David's heart. The humble shepherd who had trusted God in the cave vanished. The warrior who had spared King Saul's life in the dark snapped. David's blood boiled with absolute uncontrollable rage. All his kindness, all his self-restraint dissolved in an instant. He looked at his men, his eyes burning with vengeance. "Strap on your swords," David shouted. 400 warriors unsheathed their blades, their metal ringing through the desert air, while 200 stayed behind to guard their supplies. David swore a violent oath under his breath. "It was completely useless. I guarded this man's property in the wilderness so that nothing was missed. He has paid me back evil for good. May God deal with me, be it ever so severely, if by morning I leave a single male alive in his entire household." David wasn't just planning to kill Nabal. He was marching to exterminate every man, every boy, and every servant connected to Nabal's estate. 600 angry men, led by Israel's greatest warrior, were now riding full speed down the mountain. Blood was about to be spilled on the soil of Carmel. And back at the estate, Nabal was completely oblivious, downing cup after cup of wine, thoroughly drunk on his own pride. Thankfully, one of Nabal's young servants had common sense. He had stood in the room when Nabal insulted David's men. He knew the reputation of David. He knew the devastating power of 400 armed men. And most importantly, he knew that talking to Nabal was impossible. The servant ran through the courtyard, searching frantically until he found Abigail. Breathing heavily, the servant poured out the truth. "My lady, David sent messengers from the wilderness to greet our master, but he shouted insults at them. Yet David's men were exceptionally good to us. They were a wall around us night and day while we were taking care of the sheep. Now, think it over carefully and see what you can do, because disaster is hanging over our master and his whole household. He is such a wicked man that no one can speak to him." Imagine the shock coursing through Abigail's veins. She didn't freeze. She didn't panic. She didn't waste time going to her husband to reason with him, knowing his arrogance would only seal their execution. She took immediate, decisive action. Abigail personally oversaw the emergency preparation of a massive peace offering. In record time, she gathered 200 loaves of fresh bread, 2 full wineskins of fine wine, 5 dressed sheep ready for cooking, 5 seahs of roasted grain, 100 cakes of raisins, 200 cakes of pressed figs. She loaded everything onto donkeys and told her servants, "Go on ahead of me, I will follow right behind you." But she did not tell her husband Nabal. As she rode her donkey down into a mountain ravine, shrouded by the steep canyon walls, the sound of galloping horses began to echo off the rocks. David and his army were charging from the opposite direction. The collision course was set. The air in the mountain ravine was thick with dust. David was at the head of his column, his grip tight on his sword hilt, his face hardened with lethal intent. Suddenly, rounding the tight bend of the canyon path, Abigail appeared. The moment she saw David and his massive army, she didn't scream. She didn't turn her donkey around and flee. She dismounted quickly, fell on her face before David, and bowed down to the dirt at his feet. This was a woman of immense dignity, humbling herself before a hunted fugitive. The 400 soldiers ground to a halt, shocked by the sight of a noble woman kneeling in the dust right in front of their horses. Abigail raised her voice. Her words were not spoken in terror, but in profound, spirit-led wisdom. "My lord," she cried out, "please let the blame fall on me alone. Please let your servant speak to you. Hear what your servant has to say." Look at what she did here. She took the guilt of her husband's sin upon her, a prophetic preview of grace. She continued, "Please pay no attention, my lord, to that wicked man Nabal. He is just like his name. His name means fool, and folly goes with him. But as for me, your servant, I did not see the young men you sent." Then Abigail spoke directly to David's destiny, a destiny David himself had forgotten in his fit of rage. "And now, my lord, as surely as the Lord your God lives, he has kept you from blood guilt and from avenging yourself with your own hands. May your enemies be like Nabal. Please accept this gift I have brought, and let it be given to the men who follow you." She didn't stop there. She looked David dead in the eye and spoke words that shook him to his core. "The Lord will certainly make a lasting dynasty for my lord, because you fight the Lord's battles, and no wrongdoing will be found in you as long as you live. Even though someone is pursuing you to take your life will be bound securely in the bundle of the living in the care of the Lord your God. But the lives of your enemies he will hurl away as from the pocket of a sling." Pause and think about that. She referenced a sling. She subtly reminded David of the moment he stood before Goliath, the moment he trusted God for victory instead of his own human strength. She finished her plea with a chillingly beautiful reminder. "When the Lord has fulfilled for my lord every good thing he promised concerning you, and appointed you ruler over Israel, my lord will not have on his conscience the staggering burden of needless bloodshed, or of having avenged himself. And when the Lord has brought my lord success, remember your servant." Silence fell over the canyon. 400 hardened warriors stood breathless, waiting for David's reaction. David stared at Abigail. The dark cloud of rage that had blinded his judgment suddenly cleared. He realized how close he had come to ruining his own legacy. He was about to become king, but he was hours away from carrying the blood of innocent boys on his hands forever. David reached down, helped Abigail to her feet, and spoke with profound relief and gratitude. "Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel," David exclaimed, "who has sent you today to meet me. May you be blessed for your good judgment, and blessed be you for keeping me this day from bloodshed and from avenging myself with my own hands." David looked at her with awe. "Go home in peace," he said gently. "I have heard your words and granted your request." With a single act of courage, a quick mind, and words of divine wisdom, Abigail had disarmed an army of 600 men without shedding a single drop of blood. When Abigail returned home later that evening, the contrast couldn't have been more shocking. David's army was riding back into the desert, praising God. Meanwhile, back at the estate, Nabal was holding a feast fit for a king. He was completely hammered, laughing boisterously, surrounded by luxury, utterly unaware that death had been riding toward his front door just hours earlier. Abigail saw his state. She didn't yell at him. She didn't provoke him while he was drunk. She exercised patience and held her tongue all night long. The next morning, when the wine had left Nabal and he was sober, Abigail sat him down. In a calm, quiet voice, she told him everything. She told him about the 400 swords charging down the mountain. She told him how David had made a vow. She told him how she had bowed in the dirt to save his life. When Nabal heard the magnitude of the danger his own foolish arrogance had brought upon his household, his body went into shock. The Bible says his heart failed within him and he became like a stone. Whether it was a massive stroke brought on by sudden terror or a physical shutdown caused by intense panic, Nabal was paralyzed. 10 days later, the Lord struck Nabal and he died. When word reached David in the wilderness that Nabal was dead, David praised God for executing justice without David having to take revenge into his own hands. David remembered the incredible woman who had saved him from himself. He remembered her wisdom, her beauty, her discernment, and her faith. David immediately sent messengers to Carmel with a proposal. The messengers arrived and said to her, "David has sent us to you to take you to become his wife." Abigail didn't hesitate. She bowed with her face to the ground once more, demonstrating her timeless humility. "I am your servant, ready to serve and wash the feet of my Lord's servants." She quickly got up, mounted her donkey, attended by 5 of her female servants, and followed David's messengers to become his wife. The woman who was once trapped in a marriage with a fool was now united with the future king of Israel. The lesson for us today. The story of Abigail isn't just an ancient tale of desert drama. It holds a powerful message for our lives right now. Though God's name isn't spoken in every single verse, His hand was orchestrating every step of her journey. Abigail shows us what happens when we choose wisdom over rage, humility over pride, and action over fear. She didn't let her toxic environment define her character. She stepped up when everyone else failed. Maybe right now you feel trapped in a situation that feels unfair or chaotic. Maybe you're surrounded by Nabals, foolish, harsh, or difficult people. Remember this: God has placed you where you are for such a time as this. Your discernment, your prayers, and your quiet courage can change the destiny of your entire family, your business, or your community. Do not let anger make your decisions. Trust God to fight your battles, just as David learned on that dusty road to Carmel. If this story touched your heart today, please leave a like on this video. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you never miss another deep biblical journey with us. Now, I want to hear from you. Which incredible female character from the Bible should we cover in our next story? Should we dive into the life of Priscilla, the fearless teacher and leader who helped build the early church alongside Paul? Or would you like to hear the bold, controversial story of Queen Vashti, the woman who defied an emperor to preserve her dignity? Drop your pick in the comments down below right now. We read every single comment. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you, and we'll see you in the next story.